Welcome to My View from the Piano Bench. We do this on Wednesday evenings here on my Joel Holt's Notes YouTube channel, in addition to Piano for My Friends on Thursday evenings. Boy, we've been doing this for a long while, and we're still at it. Thank you to those of you who support and encourage me through the links you'll find on the support page on my website, and you'll see a link to that page in the video description below. And thank you for your consideration. If you haven't checked these links out or my website out, particularly if you watch with some regularity, thank you for that consideration. That's the sole, in effect, sponsorship of these videos, which I'm continuing to keep doing. And honestly, this is a very challenging time, a very busy time to do this. And that kind of is going to tie in to what I'm going to talk about today. On Wednesdays, I tend to move the phone camera a little closer. I think I typically bring it slightly closer, but I'm leaving it there. I don't feel like I have good projection today, though. I'm kind of a little tired. It's not a bad tired. It's just having a full schedule and keep moving. And on Thursdays, we put the phone camera a little further back so you can see the keys and not so much emphasis on me talking. But it's nice to sit here and talk because, as you know, if you watch this, every once in a while I'll break into just a little vamp or a few chords or something to set my brain. And that helps immeasurably, more than I can explain. And maybe I'm just going off topic right off the bat. Just kind of struggled with a topic for today. It's like looking at this time slot. This is recorded a couple of days ahead of time, and like this is the ideal slot to do this. I have several things to talk about. I'm not really clear on which one, but I guess I sort of am. But I didn't know what to call it. So anyway, let's dance all around everything, but let's land someplace. And let's say that I've decided to title this, unless I change my mind by the time it's done, and you'll see a different topic title. What was it now? Filling the niche. No. Now I can't remember. You promised that you'd forget me not, but you forgot to remember. But it was something like filling the niche. My brain is in really good shape today, which might not be a bad thing. But when I say good shape, I might not mean good. But maybe I do. Lately, it's been the case that I feel very comfortable with in general, with some variation, heightened level of consistency in my playing from gig to gig. I feel like, the space is more open to me, and it has to do with sort of waiting and getting out of myself and not grabbing onto things in my mind. But what I'm finding is, and yes, I am off topic, that's okay. But what I'm finding is that lately seems to be coming at a price, or an elevated price, because there's always this tension between the artistic temperament and the feet on the ground, eyes straight ahead, uh, normal sort of task management thing. Uh, for a lot of us artistic types, they do not go together. One of the things that I've talked about before is when I say that the artistic temperament and business sense does not exist together in too many people. When you have one, you have to go out and learn the other. And that was certainly the case with me. So that's related to this. What I find myself, yes, and I'm kind of allowing myself to be spontaneous, and I think this might actually go someplace. So the filling the niche thing might not be happening. So there's always this struggle with task management, with the focus of things, and then the creative space, which doesn't put your primary thing in front of you. In fact, a lot of times, you get that glazed over look and you don't see what's in front of you. You see what's out in the stratosphere someplace, or at least over here or there. And I'm having, in the last few weeks, the hardest time with that, but in the best way. Because I've had an experience this week with one of the many gigs I've had where I'm just not getting it together before I have to leave. And I am much better in general now than I was many years ago, but it's just like it's just not getting it together. Best way to say it. And it's just a disheveled kind of mess. And I get to the gig and oh my goodness, the space is all opened up and I see what's happening. And I purpose to do that. I purpose to carry it with me, but it's a struggle to go from one thing to the other like that. Especially when you commit to not playing from your conscious determination as much as possible. Just let it go. But boy, have I had some fun gigs. This last week leading up to me recording this has been just every night being someplace. It's all local for me. Local meaning commutable within, say, 3 hours. Okay? And that will change in a couple of weeks, and I'm looking forward to that. But this is the busy time of year, and maybe that's just the topic, the balancing act between running the business, because it is a business and nobody seems to understand how much time it can take, in large part because of all of the personal contact, networking, social media things that you do. I mean, you could spend, 2 24-hour days every day just doing that stuff. And oh my goodness, when you're out working every night and you're not close to home a lot of times, you're pretty much out all day. Then you don't really have the time at home that you need. Last week was certainly that. Then I need to make up for that weeks that I am home, and it's not happening so much. So what did I do last week? Well, let me see. I do some teaching and related things and not playing on Mondays. And then last week, what was I? Tuesday night, I did my regular gig in Columbia, Maryland, which is like an hour and a half, 2 hours from here. And then, where was I Wednesday? Down near Ocean City, Maryland, in Ocean View, Delaware, with Sharon, in a really cool gig, the Dickens Parlor Theater. That was fun. Thursday night, I was close to home. And that's what I was going to reference initially, the Inn at Honeyfield Creek for my bike tours. Maybe I'll still do that. Who knows? I am rambling. Bear with me. And then Friday, Sharon and I were in Ocean City, New Jersey for a Blossom Deary show. And Saturday, I was only an hour from home in Newcastle, Delaware, at a cool place, Ollie's Jazz Cucina. And on Sunday, I just had my Vesper service at Heron Point, but I went down to Paul Madeiri's and had a little arranging session late in the night because we're working on our shearing charts. Maybe that's what I should talk about. So it's just wow, and it's getting hard to fit this in, and I want to keep going if I at all can. All right, so I've set the stage for how disheveled everything is. Right? So let's go back to my original topic, which was going to be filling the niche, or filling the space, or something like that. And what had me think of it was, if you watched Piano for My Friends last week, you saw that I didn't do my usual play the piano from here. Well, that's because I wasn't getting it done. I mean, I was trying, it wasn't happening, and I really didn't have the right time slot to do it. Like I'm doing this right now at a time slot that's not ideal, and I don't know if I'm succeeding, and sometimes I don't. And I wasn't then. It's like, okay, Piano for My Friends has to be loaded up for Thursday night. Well, it's going to have to be late, and I'm going to go to the Inn at Honeyfield Creek and do my Vermont bike tours, a little closing night show, and I'm going to put the camera here, I'm going to record it, and I'm going to use that for Piano for My Friends. So if you didn't see last week's Piano for My Friends, and I don't know what date anything is, well, I have a calendar here, I can tell you, but it's 6 days behind whatever today is, which is really not today. Oh my goodness, what am I talking about? So that would be September 21st. Right. And I hadn't done this to this extent before, where I just taken a whole Vermont bike tour show from Honeyfield Creek and stuck it on YouTube, and purposely didn't promote it as that. In fact, when you look at the Piano for My Friends thumbnail for that week, you'll see the same one is here. But that's just the beginning and the end. The whole thing is a middle show. Maybe you want to watch that if you haven't, because that's a little window into my world. And that's what my view from the piano bench is, really, a window into my world. So I was thinking about how to talk about that, and I just kept going back and forth. I don't want to call it Vermont Bike Tours, but maybe I do, but maybe I don't. So let me just describe things about it, because it's really an encapsulation of all the unique elements that I deal with and have dealt with for the 50-ish, almost 50 years I've been doing this music thing. And maybe it's a custom fit was the word I was going to use, a custom fit. So if you aren't aware and you haven't seen the video, the Vermont Bike Tours thing, I'll give you a little history. And again, this is one of those private things. You won't see it on my schedule. It's not something you can come to see. And give or take, about half of what I do is out of the public view. So when you look at my schedule, you're seeing about half of my performances. And this little niche is one that really fits me uniquely, and one that I've been able to develop over about 15 years or so of doing it, or maybe even really more than 15 years of doing it. So the Inn at Honeyfield Creek is a wonderful upscale B&B, delightful. I tell people who I'm recommending places to stay, if money isn't an option, here's where you want to stay. If money is an option, let's go to a place that maybe I could afford. Right? But it's wonderful, and the owners have created something really, really special. Jim and Joanne Rich. And Vermont Bike Tours is a company that has bike tour packages, and they're upscale, and they're all over the world. But and they're, before COVID, we're focusing on other parts of the world. COVID kind of brought it back here, and with coming back here, Vermont Bike Tours has kind of landed on the Eastern Shore of Maryland as one of their featured tours because the terrain is so easy here, it's flat, so they often suggest this as a starter. Like, you're doing this for the first time, don't go to some mountainous thing in some mountainous country. Come to the Eastern Shore of Maryland and have a flat earth experience. Yeah, where if you drive too far, you'll fall off the edge. No. It kind of ensures that we get to keep doing it. So what they do is provide entertainment on their closing night. And I think they start on Sunday night with accommodations, and then they have 4 days of biking, I believe. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And the accommodations are split between the Tidewater Inn in Easton, Maryland, and then the bulk of it, the Inn at Honeyfield Creek. And then the last night is their sort of big social event. Inn at Honeyfield Creek is perfect for it, especially for the size, which is 20 people in the group. The living room, the big dining room, it can accommodate that. And somewhat more, but not a whole lot, but this is comfortable. But the really cool thing is in the big living room, there's a really nice little grand piano that belongs to Joanne Rich. She plays. And we've known each other for a long time, Jim, Joanne, and I. But when Vermont Bike Tours had come for years and years and years, I was not in the equation, at least initially. Tom McHugh, the founder of the Mainstay, who is also in Rock Hall, he was the one that Jim Rich would secure, and he would come in and do his like Chesapeake Bay folk song kind of thing with his banjo. He wasn't, and he acknowledges, he wasn't really a strong musician, but he was a really good storyteller. He had a good sense of timing and a good sense of phrasing, and it gave a local flavor, and that's something that's important, or at least desirable, in this kind of setting. The piano wasn't being used, but that's okay. But then I started getting the calls from Tom to sub for him when he wouldn't be there. And this is how this stuff kind of works in music. They say it's not what you know, it's who you know. There's an element to that. But the who you know is more like the connections that you have. Be prepared to use what you have in the best way, but really work on what you have so you have a real thing. It's just like, for me, the emphasis is still on what you know, not just networking with having a shallow presentation. You're just being in the moment with your eyes open in whatever space you're in. Like the illustration I use about Vince Guaraldi and him recording Cast Your Fate to the Wind, and that putting him on the map and cutting a path for him to be secured to write all the music for the Peanuts specials. I talk about that a lot. In fact, I talk about that at the Inn at Honeyfield Creek. So anyway, I would come in and I would sub for Tom McHugh, and not do anything like Tom McHugh does. But I had a template, and that template was, and at the time, I was in this period of 11 years that I did walk-on entertainment for American Cruise Lines, which when the pandemic came, stopped, and I chose not to resume afterward, for reasons that are kind of related to Vermont Bike Tours. And that's why I was confused with this. Do I just talk about Vermont Bike Tours? Do I talk about something particular about it? Do I call it Vermont Bike Tours and then later I do something on American Cruise Lines? I don't know. I'm just sort of doing it all and mixing them up. And some of you who know me know about the American Cruise Lines. And it's not a cruise ship like, one of these theme park cruises, Carnival or whatever. Big party boats and everything. No, these are high-end, very expensive inland waterway cruises with history lessons and a lecture guide that takes you through. And then what they do in American Cruise Lines is bring locally based entertainment on every night in the port they're in. And I I was, it was the right place at the right time. The circumstances, the politics worked out for me to get in there initially. But once you're in there, once I got in there, I got to stay. I think it's worth telling this story. Probably most people don't know it. So it was 2009, I believe, and American Cruise Lines was adding Chestertown to its itinerary. It only lasted 2 or 3 years because they couldn't actually dock. I think they thought they could when they initially came to town. But at the time they couldn't dock. They had to anchor in the middle of the river and do the tenders, bring people in and out and all of that. But when they came in, they contracted the local theater to put the entertainment on. And what the inclination of the theater director would have been typically was to spread it all around. Okay, I've got this, actress and this singer and this musician, and you do this and you do that. But there was a little, I don't know if I can say it, a little political thing that was going on right now, where the director felt it appropriate because of like something that had happened to make it up to me by giving this to me. And right place at the right time, but she also had the total confidence that I could do it, right? And so I got the dates for the spring or whatever it was for American Cruise Lines, and that was a new experience. Except it was kind of like playing in the retirement homes, because even though 2009 isn't that long ago, demographically it was different than it is now, and it was still like doing the retirement home things. And I learned that really quick. The theater director, went with me the first week, and she watched, and she was satisfied. And all of a sudden, I was in with the company. And it probably would have happened anyway if I didn't get all the dates. But getting all the dates just made it clean. So when they came back the next year, I think they just contacted me. I kept my relationship with the theater. I gave them their cut, for the 3 years, and then they left Chestertown. But they offered me another destination, another walk-on place, which was typically down in Cambridge, Maryland, which is an hour and change from me. So I got to stay with the company. I kind of earned my slot. I filled the niche the right way, and in that case, it was an hour. It was a captive audience. They didn't know me. On occasion, somebody would be there who I knew from the music business, or I played for somewhere else in the country, or had taken a cruise before and had seen me. But typically, the whole thing was making the connection, selling yourself in the way that, like, hey, yeah, I want to be here. Not me, but them, right? And the big downside was the electric piano. Not a real piano, and not a good quality electric piano either. So that's a struggle. I couldn't entirely make it about playing the piano. But I had my shtick, I had my ADD improvisation, I had the whole thing. And had I chosen to continue after COVID, I could have kept going. But the demographic shift was part of the problem, and just being completely kind of annoyed at that point about the instrument I had to play, and the fact that the Inn at Honeyfield Creek had happened. So these are all related, right? So, but I had those 11 years to really kind of hone a show where people come because it's the only game in town or on their boat. These are like 50 to 100 passenger boats. But then, they give me a couple of tunes before they decide to walk away, and then by and large, I didn't walk away. Related to this was a conversation I had years ago with someone who was kind of deep in the Nashville music scene years ago as a director of shows, and he had his formula, that he to walk me through. And honestly, I don't remember it except for the third tune. It's like your first tune does this, your second tune does this, and then you have them on the third tune. And that works for me because I'm not this kind of guy who just wows you with the first, 10 seconds of music I play. I'm going to draw you in, right? And typically I would have the rapport. And then I always got good write-ups, good reviews, which is why the cruise line kept me. So I had my whole kind of shtick thing. So when I was called to sub for Tom McHugh for Vermont Bike Tours, I just really fell back on what I did for American Cruise Lines. Maybe the age demographic was slightly lower for Vermont Bike Tours, because these were not only like, retired people with money to spare or burn or something, but they were also like young enough or vital enough to be able to take long bike rides every day, So that narrowed it into a different place slightly, but it was pretty much the same thing. But to my delight, I got to come in and play a real piano. And that just increased the tension with me about American Cruise Lines. Maybe I call this video American Cruise Lines versus Vermont Bike Tours. Ha! But anyway, that experience in Honeyfield Creek was really, really nice. And I would sub for Tom 2 or 3 times a year. Yeah. So it wasn't a big thing, but everybody, it worked for everybody. The company, the guests, Jim and Joanne, myself. It was cool. And sadly, Tom McHugh in recent years took very ill and passed away. And it's either maybe 3 years now, 2 or 3 years. I'm not even sure. But there came the point where Tom McHugh had to relinquish Vermont Bike Tours. So there it was. I was there. Now, in terms of filling the niche, you see, Tom McHugh used what he had, but I know what I have, right? I'm a pianist, and there's a piano, right? And I have been tweaking the program ever since I started there, and ever since I started with American Cruise Lines. And it's really tweaked a lot because the culture demographic, even though it's only been like 14, 15 years, is different now. It's like, the Billy Joel, Elton John contingent can't be dismissed now. You got to play music into the 70s, right? And I kind of figured out how to do that finally in an appropriate way. And I liked that I got to share that video of my presentation, about 45 minutes or so, for last week's Piano for My Friends, because one, I was really on. That was I think one of the days, or the day, that I was just a train wreck getting out the door, because everything was just, but I was in that open space. I sat down at the piano and wham. And if you watch that, I like that because you could hear the audience response. It was, very generous, and it was a real bond, and it was a beautiful thing. So I got to do, first crack at all of the Vermont Bike Tours. And actually, this year I have to sub out the last 2 in a couple of weeks because the 2 jazz festivals. I'm sad about that, but so I keep bringing up that you could watch that, and if you haven't, go and watch it, because I guess I'm going to talk about it. So what I came up with for this year was not to try to find a way to talk about the historic music that I play, because it's not really and connected to some relevancy and stuff. It's like, I know what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to say, hey, here's a piano, and we're going to center on the piano. And Casablanca, everyone still has that reference, right? And so, so that's a nice end. Nobody gets hurt. It's not a big grabber, but you don't need the big grabber, right? And then if I don't make any qualification about it, I just hop right to Billy Joel for the second tune. That's a piano reference, right? And then I can go back There's no piano reference. I'm playing ragtime music. That's the third tune. And that's where I get all sticky. If you watch the video from last week, I have some absolutely ridiculous elements like that that uncharacteristic of me or pre-planned for that. That's like a semi-Victor Borge-ish, little bit, a shtick thing. And I wasn't as shticky as I often am. I actually toned it down slightly because I presented it differently. But then, wham! Then you're in, right? And then I can do the stuff that I really like, want to do and am comfortable with. So where did I go from there? Oh, so I'm talking about playing the piano. And most of my training is classical training, but all I can really effectively do is improvise. So we bring those together into that. All right, so the idea that, like, I'm a young person, I'm saying, how am I going to make my living? I'm going to work for Vermont Bike Tours, and I'm going to play their closing program at a venue that wants to hire me and has a nice piano. That's just a circumstance that presents itself that you need to be ready for. That's right. So, like, filling the space. I don't want to say filling the space, because I talk about the space as like the intuition. So filling the niche or something like that. And if you know anything about my path as a musician, it's just been a lot of that, which for most all musicians, it's filling those niches, what I call niches, in the trenches, so to speak. In fact, that used to be a big theme that I would do in these shows, and I've kind of moved away from it. I would have a segment where I would talk about, that there are so many really fine musicians, great musicians. You don't know their names, you never hear of them. They are, playing in the symphony orchestras, right? And they have their job, and they earn that job because of how good they are, or just randomly you run across a musician. Wow, cool, right? And then I can use that to talk about my shopping mall food court gig in Cherry Hill, New Jersey for 11 years. He's like, yeah, I was one of those people you randomly, ran across. And you just fill those niches. And you try to, like, elevate the scene. You try to, add value to your environment or whatever. So I had this little routine. It's like, okay, here's an example of, like, a musician who made a contribution who you probably don't know the name of, unless you came up in Pittsburgh, and you do. Right? Oh, Johnny Costa. Nobody knows Johnny Costa's name, but everyone knows that came from Mr. Rogers, right? And so after talking about my experiences, different things I do, and then I can go to Vince Guaraldi, and that becomes like the one cultural place that I can just live for a while. I don't live there too long. I could, In fact, my first Friday show in December at the Mainstay is going to be a Vince Guaraldi tribute, which is going to be fun, which I've never done with a rhythm section. So it's going to be cool. Great bass player and drummer are going to be with me. All those great tunes. But I get to tell the story. Cast your fate to the wind. Right? And how that, and there's different versions of the story, but the common thread is that was the momentum for him to have the visibility to be seen and known, to be offered the chance to write that music. So, like, Linus and Lucy and all that Charlie Brown music would have never happened if not for Cast Your Fate to the Wind, in all likelihood. So the idea of that sort of undergirds that you never know who's listening, and if you can, one of my sayings is purify the motive, elevate the outcome. Okay? And if you're just doing what you do out of the pureness of doing it, out of the love, out of the generosity, out of all of that, then you're going to be taken care of. Some of you have heard me tell the story of when one of my niche things that I out of the blue was offered a full-time ongoing gig at the Showboat Atlantic City, doing one of the ragtime piano shifts in the hotel lobby. And at the time it was really welcome because my schedule was lighter than it needed to be. And all of a sudden I find myself, down there working full time. And I kind of lost track of the just do your thing, and I'm like, I need to get the next contract extension. Worry, concern. Here comes the owner. Make sure you play the right thing and smile and look the part and all this stuff, which is stuff you want to do. But, I can easily lose track of what I know, which is part of the human condition. To make a biblical reference, the very thing I don't want to do, that I do. Wretched man that I am, or something like that from the Apostle Paul. Meaning we do mess up and we do drift away from what some would call our higher self, right? But it keeps coming back to make the contribution, and there will be a space for you. And in full transparent honesty, I know there was a reason I was bringing up the Showboat, and now I can't really recall it. But I guess it was really just like, be prepared to fill the niche that comes your way, not because you're trying to make something happen. Although I'm not saying you don't try to make things happen in terms of be proactive and promoting and stuff, but it's like when it's your contribution to make and you can own it. And I think that's it right there, right? Owning your contribution. It's like that opportunity comes along, I can do that. I can do that in my own unique way. I can do that like nobody else can do it. Not better. What I always say, I'm not a great musician, but I can do one thing better than anyone else and nobody can touch it. And that's be myself, right? And that was cool. And that led to other things and led to other things and led to other things. Then when we get to Vermont bike tours, right? And it's like, man, playing on a nice piano really makes the presentation because I can express through it. I can't express through a stupid keyboard. There were other things that were kind of shifting in American Cruise Lines land that had me say, I think it's time. But the big thing that really got me leaning that way hard was I need an acoustic piano to do this. Okay, that served its course. I'm walking away from it, and now I have the contract. That's a good way to put it, right? Each year when they come in the spring and the fall. So you got a window into that in the video from last week. So know that if you watch that, I've had like since 2009, so like 15 years-ish, to really hone what that presentation is. And I'm still going to continue to hone it. So what did I do after pre-release? Okay, and of course, if I had an audience that had no connection to playing the piano, and taking lessons or classical music, not everybody, but enough people, I would skip that. But that's, relevance, totally in an arts kind of environment, which I can become. And then, I tell my little Fats Wilder story. And here's the cultural thing. We're now so far away from that early period of jazz that I can pretty much count on nobody, or possibly on a good week, one or two people, but usually nobody, knowing what stride piano is. So now we have this rapport going. I'm not just playing a concert of things that they might not be engaged in, and me being aware that they're not, and it's just the whole thing not being in the slot, right? We're all in that, lasso around the room together space by then. And then I can be the guy who says, hey, impress your friends, know what stride piano is, and I'll give you a demonstration. So it's like crafting the thing to work for them and to work for me. Right? And there it is. And then I can go from Fats Wilder to Vince Guaraldi, which is what I do. Cast Your Fate to the Wind, Lioness and Lucy. And then, depending on how much time, one or two other things at the end, I sort of stock closers. And I was doing an amalgam of I Got Rhythm and the Flintstones, and I'm chopping the Flintstones. I'm just playing I Got Rhythm. And making it more actually about just playing it at the most elevated level I can, as opposed to making it, shticky with, doing what they call a mashup of I Get Rhythm and the Flintstones. So see, I'm not all about shtick. But what I would tell the kids in the jazz combo when I was at the college, shtick is fine as long as you're delivering substance, right? So if you watch that video, here's some things. Let's see if I can remember what they were. Some things I had in reserve that have to do with the piano, right? I can think of one. Oh my goodness, the Godot Alley Cat, right? That's a tune I would never take seriously. Let me see if my other clipboard's here. Oh, I won't worry about it now. Just try to remember as best I can. And there we go. But I just spontaneously started playing it about a year ago, or maybe more now, in one of the Piano for My Friends episodes. And it's like, you know what? This actually works. And I don't mind playing stupid tunes. It's ultimately tune's a tune, and you can just have fun with it. So I kind of like playing the Alley Cat, right? That was one piano reference. Another one that I probably would not do, but it's a piano reference. play chopsticks in a public show because Liberace did it. It's like, well, that's nice, but not my thing. While he was still alive to see it, I did it for him in a show. So I did my duty, but I made him wait a very long time. So that's another reference. Like Heart and Soul is becoming actually, as you can see, the people. I do 1, 6, 4, 5. Or Jersey Jazz Guy, 1, 6, 2, 5. But that's actually, I believe, Hoagie Carmichael too, with a nice bridge, which I'm not recalling right now, so I'm not going to play it. And then the other stick thing I would do. Oh my goodness! I should have. I wasn't planning on playing it for that long, but I should have stated the melody. I'll do the Maple Leaf Rag, but then I'll get all ridiculously sticky with it. So one thing that wasn't a part of the video, I took it out, that I use for last week's Piano for My Friends, is the part where I reference that it's coming, but I stop the video, which is when the show's over, I let Jim direct the traffic, and bring your chairs back in the dining room and blah, 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 blah. And then I'm going to switch hats. I'm going to play you into the dining room. And I play Misty. Because there's another piano reference. Even though you'd be surprised, very few people know who Earl Gardner is. But they know it soon. But I stop the camera, or crop that part out, because everyone's coming up and talking to me. I'm trying not to show people the video, and I'm talking to them. I wasn't entirely committed because I'm thinking, what are the next few things I'm going to say? And that's related to what I can say. I can play and have people talk to me. I've talked to you about this. But in order to do that, I have to be in the creative space where I'm not consciously thinking. The effortless mastery by Candy Warner means that you have things mastered. And then you move them over where they're effortless, which is not the learning to master something space. That's the cognitive space. That's the determination space. It's when it's part of your expression, you don't have to think about it. And so I can, have the conversation while this is the music is going on. And I kind of do that on purpose because it's like one of my things that becomes part of my shtick. Hey, look, I can do this. What do you want to talk about? Hey, you know. But that brings something to mind. That again, if you watch this regularly, you've heard me say that if you're really in that creative space, then your brain's free, and one of the things that'll happen is I'll be thinking of things while I'm playing, and then say, "Yeah, I was thinking about when I did this," and I thought it was really cool on the show we the show we did at the Ocean City Library with Sharon and two other musicians who played with us. Because Sharon listens to everything I say, and you know, Sharon's a generation behind me in age, and I think to some extent I can play, not play. I can be the voice of experience, or the guy who's been around the block a few more times, or the whatever, right? And she quoted me. It's like I didn't know. Yeah, she's paying attention to what I say. I know she does. But I said, yeah, well, Joe will say that if you're in the way she put it, and I had to question it, it's like, yeah, it works. It's interesting how she put it. Joe would say if you're in the moment with something, then you can, watch yourself think about something else. So you can be thinking about something else while you're doing it. And she said, and so while I was singing that, here's what I was thinking about. I'm like, go Sharon, you just took my line and you used it for yourself, which is great because she's owning it. The thing about Sharon is that there's a lot of common approach wiring stuff, which makes that artistic connection really, really, really work. So now we just try to tie this up, and when an opportunity comes to me, I'm like, is that a niche I can fill? And now that I'm getting older, it's something I even want to deal with, which when you're younger, you don't ask yourself that question typically, and typically that's correct that you don't, because you want to get out there and you want to have all these experiences and you want to create your connections, and you want to also learn what doesn't work for you, and you fall on your face and then realize, well, if I'm going to do that again, I have to be better prepared, or maybe I just don't do that again. So when that niche, when that unique thing comes, how can I best fill it? And I'm not hesitant too much to turn things down these days if I don't know how that's going to work ahead of time. And I don't, my line is, I don't enjoy saying no, but I can find lots of creative ways not to say yes. Right? So what you saw in that video, and I think I'm going to pull one or two tunes out and post them on YouTube as well, so you'll be able to find them. So we'll just continue to find opportunities, and I will continue to think about what a good title for this video would be. And I know I'm kind of all over the place, and I thank you for it. I'm probably not going to be able to do videos in 2 weeks, because after next week I got 2 jazz festivals in a row, and the second one's in Sun Valley, Idaho, and I'm gone for almost a week. And it is getting hard to squeeze these in. And you know what? Those of you who watch, just keep watching, and those of you who support, just keep supporting, and that's going to keep me going. And I really appreciate it. So let me just take one of those tunes that I play for Vermont Bike Tours. That's what I forgot. There was the other piano reference tune that I haven't done, And I don't know why, I can play it. I just don't feel like I own it yet. It's like if I'm going to reference Billy Joel, let me also reference Elton John, right? I'm not sure that worked. I should have ended it, an Elton John tune sounding like I was in Scaraldi. I don't know. But anyway, I hope you found this, interesting in some way. And those of you who do feedback to me, I appreciate that. And I will see you tomorrow night for Piano for My Friends. Hopefully the right way from here. So, thanks so much. See you later.